Look closely at the golden mask of a pharaoh or the painted bust of Nefertiti, and you will see it. A dramatic, sweeping line of black powder, dark as a moonless night, drawn carefully along the edge of the eyelid. This heavy, almond-shaped eyeliner crossed every boundary of gender and supreme power. Kings wore it with the exact same intensity as queens, and it rarely stopped at the palace walls. If you walked through a mud brick village by the Nile 4,000 years ago, you would see this same dark line on fishermen, farmers, and even young children. Drawing it on was as ordinary as brushing your teeth. To the Egyptians, shaping their eyes echoed the wedget, the eye of Horus. This was one of the most powerful symbols in their world, carved into amulets to guard the wearer against harm. The line they drew each morning was an act of armoring themselves. An entire civilization painted their faces to face a dangerous world, weaving beauty, religion, and survival into a single gesture. To make this classic black kohl, they turned to the earth. They ground down a heavy, glittering mineral called galena into a powder finer than flour. Galena is a natural ore of lead. The dark paste that millions of people smeared directly onto their eyelids every single day was highly toxic. Today, we recognize chronic lead exposure as a cause of severe, irreversible neurological damage. Yet in medical scrolls written around 1550 BC, like the Ebers Papyrus, Egyptian physicians prescribed this heavy lead paste as a medicine to heal diseases of the eye. For centuries, modern historians read those texts and smiled politely. They assumed the ancients were simply covering their vanity with superstition, telling themselves pretty stories to justify their favorite cosmetic. How could a known poison possibly act as a protector? And why would a deeply observant civilization enthusiastically court this danger for thousands of years? In 2010, a team of French scientists finally put that question to a biological test. They gained access to dozens of genuine, perfectly preserved makeup samples taken straight from ancient containers housed in a Louvre. When they analyzed the chemical makeup of the powder, they found 4 distinct lead-based compounds. 2 of them, galena and cerussite, form naturally in the ground, but the other 2, laurionite and phosgenite, are chemical anomalies that almost never exist in nature. To get these specific pale salts, they have to be deliberately synthesized. Someone along the Nile was grinding lead compounds, soaking them in salt solutions, and patiently repeating the washing and drying process over many days or weeks to harvest crystals that did not exist around them. 2,000 years before the word chemistry was spoken, ancient artisans were running complex laboratory procedures. They were intentionally manufacturing toxic compounds because they desperately needed an ingredient that simple rock could not provide. To find out exactly what those artificial lead salts were doing, the scientists applied the ancient chemical compounds directly to cultured human skin cells. This chart visualizes the cellular response. When exposed to the lead salts, the living skin cells produced a sudden spike of a tiny molecule called nitric oxide, increasing production by up to 240%. Nitric oxide operates as a biological alarm bell. When skin cells pump it out, it commands the immune system to deploy a rush of defensive cells, flooding the surface of the eye to attack invading bacteria. This aggressive biological defense was essential for anyone living along the Nile. Every year the river flooded, leaving behind vast marshes and stagnant pools, a perfect breeding ground for blinding bacterial eye infections. The daily application of kohl acted as a constant, low-level immune trigger. Without knowing the microscopic mechanism, the Egyptians developed a paste that primed their eyes to fight a blinding infection before the bacteria ever arrived. The science proves the paste worked, but the core ingredient responsible for triggering that immune response was still lead, and lead accumulates relentlessly in human bone and tissue over decades. The ancient Egyptians were engaged in a grim transaction. They accepted the long, slow neurological damage of heavy metal poisoning to buy immediate protection against the bacteria waiting in the water to steal their sight. In a brutal environment with shorter lifespans, dirty water, and 0 antibiotics, absorbing a daily dose of poison was a calculated, necessary mechanism to ensure a farmer or fisherman could survive. That ancient calculation fails completely today. In many parts of the world, traditional lead-based kohl is still sold and applied to the faces of young children, raising their blood lead levels and causing entirely preventable harm. We now have clean water and modern antibiotics. There is absolutely no reason to court a heavy metal poison for an immune benefit we can acquire safely. But when we look at the painted eyes of an Egyptian statue, we are looking at 4,000 years of intense, hard-won observation. A civilization without microscopes developed a biologically active cosmetic, finding the exact razor-thin line where a deadly poison becomes the very thing that saves you.